Good afternoon, everybody. It's Throwback Thursday, and I'm DeSoto Brown, and I'm speaking to you live this time from Bishop Museum Archives in Honolulu. And of course, this is also going to be posted so people can see it later, but maybe some of you people are watching it live right this minute. Today, I'm going to talk about Hawaiian records, and specifically how Hawaiian records have been packaged over the years. Now, audio recordings go back a good long time. Entertainment recordings, meaning that people were buying to play in their home, started about 1900, and the technology has been through some various shifts. And originally, when you bought a record, it didn't have any kind of special packaging. You just went to a store and there was the record in a paper sleeve, and you just bought the record because you wanted it. And gradually people began to repackage records, and the first thing that they did was to make what were called record albums. And what I'm holding right here is from the 1940s. And this is called a record album because it's like a photo album. It's got cardboard covers, and then inside, instead of pages, it's got these sleeves that would have held individual records. So that's why when we talk about a group of recordings all packaged together in one thing, we call them a record album, because this is what record albums look like. Now, when these were invented, a lot of records weren't sold this way, so they weren't, the necessity of making a really attractive cover really hadn't come about yet. But technology changed, and the record album I just showed you would have had a collection of 78 RPM individual discs, and each side of each disc had only one record on it. Late 1940s, technology changed, and two major companies in the United States each debuted a new type of record technology at the same time. The RCA Victor company put out 45 RPM individual discs, but the Columbia company started selling what were called long playing discs. That is, or they were also called LPs, and they turned at 33 1/3 revolutions per minute, and they had multiple songs per side. And when those LPs were sold, they were packaged in cardboard covers like the one that I'm holding. You may notice that this is small. This is a 10-inch record, and within a few years the standard became 12-inch records for LPs. So once LPs became standard in the market, then there became a whole new way of selling records. That is, by making really attractive covers for people to be attracted to when they were in a record store flipping through records. This is, again, something that was an innovation and really became very significant in how successful records were based on their covers, not so much what the contents were. This is a record this is an LP put out by what was called the 49th State Hawaii Record Company. Why is it called 49th State, you ask, since Alaska is the 49th state? Well, the name came into use before Hawaii was the 50th state, and it was hoped that Hawaii was so close to statehood we'd become the 49th state, which we did not. Now, this is kind of a generic cover for this record, which is also kind of generic Hawaiian music. And this is just a publicity picture that was taken for advertising purposes that they reused. And some of you may know Danny Kalekini, who has been a singer, very successful singer in Hawaii for many, many years. Here he is in the 1950s when he was just starting out. So early LP covers sometimes could be really kind of busy, and people weren't necessarily always very adept at putting something together that was really easy to see. So this cover, which is probably from the late 1960s, this is an example of that. It's photograph taken at the Coco Palms Hotel on Kauai, and it's a Christmas album sung by Larry Rivera, who is sitting in the foreground there. And it's a nice picture, but you can't really tell necessarily all these different things that are going on unless you look really carefully. So record cover design became something that was very important, and lots of record companies, even small ones, came to understand it was something that was necessary. So in this case, from this 1960s album, you can see that Jino Keawe, who is obviously the person on the album, is the one who is featured here, and my cohort, Hadley Anderson, has just arrived. So Hadley, come join us.
These look like old records.
These are old records. You're absolutely right.
Fantastic.
This is fantastic. Now, this is a good point for me to explain what the reason I have these records with me right now. And this is Hadley, everybody. Hi, Hadley.
Hi, DeSoto.
We started early. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The reason I have these albums right with me right at the moment is because, and this is an important thing that museums do, we are deaccessioning these records and we're giving them to
Me?
No, not to you, not to you. No, we don't do that.
Oh.
These records are being given to Sinclair Library at the University of Hawaii, Manoa.
Oh, fantastic.
Because Sinclair is actively collecting commercial Hawaiian recordings. So we're deaccessioning our commercial records to give to them because that's what they're going to focus their collection on. We're keeping many audio recordings, but the ones that were generated by or collected by Bishop Museum staff members that are unique. And these are the only those are the only copies that we have of those records. These other ones are going to other folks, and that anymore you pass them along. There you go.
Okay.
Well, so we're talking about records. We're talking. Here we're in the 1960s, and here's a record. Aloha Week in Hawaii. And Aloha Week is an annual event. Occurs every September or October in the Hawaiian Islands. It's a week long, and it's all kinds of different types of performances and events. And I'm showing you this one because this is a double record. And again, us old folks will remember that sometimes you could get double records that had 2 LPs, 2 discs, in a cover that folded out. And what this also, once you had a 12-inch record with a big cover like this, not only did you have a cover design, but you had room for what were called liner notes, meaning information about the performers or the songs they were performing or things like that, plus lots of photographs. So lots of people really liked these big album covers because you could sit and look at them and read them.
While listening to the music.
And as well as listen to the music. A lot of people have started collecting records back in the 1970s and 80s, old records, because the graphics of the covers were so interesting. The way things change through time and how people are presented and what typefaces they use and stuff. And something else that I like and a lot of other people like is the changes in fashion that you see on these covers. And so here's Hui Ohana, which is a group of these 3 guys who you see, and they are posed at what used to be the black sand beach at Kalapana on the island of Hawaii, which was destroyed by lava flow in the 1990s, so it's not there anymore. But what I like is their outfits. They're wearing matching polyester outfits.
I thought they looked pretty dapper myself.
They look very dapper, and as performers, you're up on stage, you got to look dapper and you got to look fashionable. And these were the fashions of the time that this album was recorded. And this one, I know you're looking at this with great interest.
It looks like Saturday Night Fever almost.
This is from the Saturday Night Fever era of the late 1970s, and this is Iva Kinimaka. He was a singer who was one of the regular performers in Waikiki. Waikiki used to have a lot of showrooms and had a lot of live performers, and Iva Kinimaka is one of them. And he is very much in step with the 1970s here. He's got on a swinging outfit. He has a swinging disco babe with him, and they are with a very swanky white, I think that's a Lincoln Continental. Yeah, that's a Lincoln, posed in Waikiki during the swinging disco years. And again, that's one of the really wonderful things about album covers is that they're very much from the time period. And after some time passes, you can look back and say, wow, weren't those swinging years that we were there?
That was pretty exciting.
Those were pretty exciting. Well, so far you've seen a lot of very kind of straightforward things. It's a picture of the person, it's a picture of the group. But starting in the 70s, people began, and in the 60s to a degree, but in the 70s here locally, people began designing record covers that weren't necessarily really commercial looking, but were just interesting pictures, interesting designs, and you had to sort of look at them and read them to see what they were. So this is one of those records. It's from the early 1970s. When did this come out? 1975. And it is the Gabi Pahinui Hawaiian Band, and that's a piece of art that depicts the place that this record was recorded. And I know that because my brother was one of the producers of this record, and this design was done by a friend of mine. Really? And
it's beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful? And then when you look inside, this is what I was talking about for the double albums. Look at this. There are pictures of all of the guys and information about where they did it and who they are, etc. And there's also a really nice design. Look at how nice that design is. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
You know who did this?
Is it the same person?
No. It was me.
What?
Yes. I did this design here along the edges.
Quite the artist there, DeSoto.
And I copied it from an old record label. So that's appropriate. So that is our very quick look at the history of some of the packaging of Hawaiian records. And today, we really don't have this type of thing anymore, because you really don't go to a record store and buy records anymore. And even if you do buy a record, it's just a CD and a very small cover. So
I would beg to differ. I have a lot of friends who actually collect
Yeah.
vinyl records.
there are, yes, there
and
are.
still demand pressings of the newest band's vinyl records.
This is true. I shouldn't say that it doesn't exist at all, because you're right, it does. But it certainly isn't as prominent as it was, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
For sure, yeah.
When there were large record stores, I mean huge record stores, and you went through bins of records going really fast, just looking at the covers and deciding if you wanted that record or not. So the cover was a really big part of why people chose to buy records a lot of times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, so that's our Throwback Thursday, and we are coming to you from Bishop Museum, and definitely come to the Bishop Museum website. Why, they ask?
Because we have a lot of really interesting stuff going on all the time. We also have a brand new website, which is really gorgeous to look through.
Absolutely.
So hit us up at www.bishopmuseum.org.
And see all the things that are going on, and information about our collections and all kinds of wonderful stuff. So, till next Throwback Thursday, everybody.